Well, firstly, yes, absolutely. Both on a very simple, ideal level, on a kind of moral and ethical level, but also on a practical level, in that we, for the last few generations, we had something, in the UK at least, we had something very similar to this. We had an excellent university system that was free, literally free, paid for through tax. Students would receive grants and so on, and an entire generation of working class people managed to become educated and improve their lives and so on. This happened in a time when we were far poorer than we are now, and yet it was done, and it was done well. And even now, the British university system, although it's been under attack for well over a decade in terms of neoliberal modernisation, is still amongst the best in the world. And yet now it's being attacked in a way that it's never been attacked before. The government we have now are basically selling off the universities, allowing competitors to come in from all over the world, especially the US, where they have sort of massive, low-level, profit-making universities. They're burdening an entire generation of students with massive debts that they wouldn't have had previously. And they're also making the life of the academics much harder and an almost impossible role. And it must be resisted, and it is being resisted, and absolutely, I support all attempts to resist this move. Yeah, well, Olympics are interesting because on the one level, before you think about the kind of urban level, they offer the host nation to present a kind of a spatial expression of a kind of, you might call it a brand identity, or an ideological position, or something similar, where they speak to the world and they create spatial objects that represent some kind of values that they have about their society. So it operates like that on one level. And then on other levels it can be a mixed affair. Some Olympics are known for being very helpful to their cities. A good example would be Barcelona in 1992, where the government invested heavily in infrastructure, and the general consensus is that it did improve the prospects of the city. In London's case, coming as it does within a very particular kind of British kind of capitalism, it's taking place in an area, a very large area that was very poor, and there has been massive public spending upon the Olympics, but only up to a certain point. So the Olympics has been used as basically a regeneration catalyst, whereby they build the stadia, they create the parks, but they also sell off large areas of land to private developers in order to create new neighbourhoods and so on. What this is all doing is vastly accelerating the increase in housing prices that was already happening in that area due to artists moving in and kind of creative gentrification, as it's described. The Olympics has massively accelerated that process. House prices have gone up. The new neighbourhoods that are being built are completely out of the reach of the people who were living there. And in fact, in the areas around the Olympics, there is massive foreign investment in property as well, coming in from China and India and various places. And so people who have been living in these neighbourhoods are being pushed out further and further. The Olympics in general is sort of tied to massive commercial development as well. There's one of the main things that even allowed the Olympics to take place in London was the creation of a mega mall called the Westfield, and so it's a very kind of, in a very British way, it's a very cynical, essentially a gift to private developers and investors from the government in the shape of a spectacle, disregarding whatever branding of the UK it might have, or what effect of branding the UK it might have worldwide, basically. Absolutely, but it's also it is a very good investment. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it happening. Well, you do see it happening an awful lot, so you know that there is a belief that it is a good investment. But at the same time, the investment in spectacles, whether they be events like the Olympics or whether they be objects such as public art investment or cultural buildings and so on and so forth, still rests on a kind of a certain level of faith. The quantifiability of kind of regeneration increase in value is very difficult, and it requires a determined belief that it will work. And in the UK, in terms of the building of housing in the last decade or so, there was a lot of investment in cultural objects, cultural events as parts of regeneration practice. This, in a way, acted as a kind of confidence boost for investment and so on. Whether or not it worked, it'd be very difficult to prove, and it's very difficult for them to quantify what value they received out of it. But it certainly was definitely invested in on many levels by those who are looking to build housing for. Build private housing or regenerate neighbourhoods and so on and so forth, right up to, of course, things like the Olympics, which are on the level of the state as a whole, and so on. So it's a kind of, it works in two ways, because it's surprisingly unquantifiable for something so profit-oriented, but at the same time, it's something that is seen as necessary and has been done an awful lot for whether or not it's been a positive thing in cities, which frequently it hasn't. Often it's completely superfluous, and if not damaging to a local area.